Alright, I am 2 weeks into not masturbating. This is the second longest I've ever gone. I went 19 days earlier in the summer. But I want to say I feel a lot more confident this time than the last time around because of the flavor of how it's going. You see, last time when I went 19 days, the entire flavor was on sacrificing, right? I had a difficult time mingling with certain people who tempted me to masturbate. I couldn't talk to a bunch of my friends on Facebook. I actually am Facebook friends with a celebrity, if you can believe it. But last time around, I had a hard time talking to her because I would be tempted to masturbate. I would talk to her for 2 minutes and the urge would just be intense. And I had to cut the conversation short. I had to find all sorts of excuses to get away from it. This time I've been talking to her quite extensively, actually. I don't know if she knows that I've quit masturbating. She did watch me sing a few times on some of my YouTube videos. I don't know if she's following. I think she senses that something is different. I don't know if she's watching any of this, though, so I hate to talk too much about it. But masturbating sits in this weird quandary, right? Usually if you have an addiction that you're getting off of and you go to work withdrawn, you usually want to tell people what you're going through, right? I had a couple coworkers who were recovering from, believe it or not, alcohol, and I had several actually who were quitting smoking during the time that I've been working. I've had a few coworkers who tried to quit smoking, relapsed, quit for good, quit only for a certain time period. You get the idea, right? And they usually talk about it. I had one coworker who had a difficult time getting off of painkillers after surgery, and she talked about it too, right? And meanwhile, I have to battle all the masturbating withdrawal symptoms all by myself, right? That's the weird quandary about it. The other quandary about it is that certain coworkers would cause me to feel a temptation to masturbate as well. You definitely can't talk about that, right? Imagine you had a few coworkers who tempted you to drink or who were your smoking buddies and you couldn't see them. I think people would understand that, right? But coworkers who tempt you to masturbate, what are you going to say there, right? That's the weird quandary about it. But this time around, today is day 14, this time around, instead of feeling sacrifice, I've been feeling a sense of appreciation that I'm free of all this, right? One of my big weaknesses at work was the last job that I quit. I found I didn't collect enough information about everybody. So for example, my boss, he's Middle Eastern, and I didn't know what he looked for in an employee, right? I also didn't know his cultural background. What would be a good excuse to take a day off in his mind, right? So for example, I took a day off in November to go see a lunar eclipse, and he was not exactly happy about that. He asked me if I could go back the next day anyway, because the eclipse ends at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, whatever the situation is. The eclipse was only visible in Ellensburg. It was really cloudy here in Seattle, and he wants me to be driving back at 3, 4 in the morning from Ellensburg back to Seattle to start the day at, I think it was a 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock shift on a Saturday, something like that. And meanwhile, my coworkers are taking time off to do graduation, to go to a wedding, and he seems to be okay with that, right? What else? I think some of my coworkers have family commitments to go back to school shopping and all that. Whatever the situation is, he was okay with all that stuff, right? And so it made me think about maybe I didn't listen to my boss and what he values in life, his family values and all that. So earlier this summer, when I took another job at a different tutoring center, I learned to be more active in listening. And talk a lot less, right? I had a similar problem 2 years ago at an apartment. I live out of my car when it's comfortable too. You know, all told in my lifetime, I've spent a combined 3 years in my car, if you can believe it, if you add up all the time I've ever spent in my car together. But on March 19th, 2020, I frantically looked for an Airbnb to check into because we were just going to stay indoors for 2 weeks and all this would blow over, right? And I found an apartment in Factoria, which is in a suburb that's southeast of Seattle. and I booked it for 3 weeks, if I remember correctly. Now, at the end of the 3 weeks, there was no signs of this craziness letting up, and I looked into seeing if I should move somewhere else or what I can do, and I discovered that Governor Inslee had signed a moratorium, and the landlord couldn't raise our rent. And technically, if we couldn't pay up, we could pay it later. I had the money to pay up, but obviously I didn't want the landlord to increase the rent. And when I went to talk to her about it, she's from Middle Eastern background. She gave me the spew about how it didn't apply to her and all that. I knew it did. I did my research before I went to talk to her. That's why being prepared is good. The only thing I didn't prepare for was that I didn't know her background nearly as much as I could have, but she knew too much about my background, what I did for a living, what I did for fun, what matters to me, and she probably got the sense that I dislike conflict, right? I just want to get back to writing my computer games, back to, she knows that I'm missing out on seeing my girlfriend. I had a girlfriend just before the pandemic and all that. And I gave her too much information is what it is. I ended up getting my money back and all that, but it made for a very uncomfortable situation. Let's put it that way. And so that experience and the experience at my work last spring taught me that I should listen more. So as I'm interviewing for this job, I'm thinking, it's an eight-week gig, and I really hope to be able to go back to Wallace at some point. I work Monday through Thursday. If I go back to Wallace, I'll probably want to call off on a Monday or a Thursday to have a few extra days. And I was thinking, what excuse am I going to use? My first thought was, since he doesn't seem very panicked about COVID-19, maybe one day I'll fake having COVID-19. I'll come to work on a Wednesday acting a little bit off, and then by Thursday, oh my god, I have COVID, and then off to Wallace I go, right? But at the same time, I realized that I didn't want my students to panic, to think they might have caught COVID from me. And so I turned on my active listening, and as he's talking, he talks about he was talking about teaching experience, and he told me about his church buddy who had said something. So I knew he belonged in a church, and he talked about his 12-year-old son and sports that he's involved in. And so I knew families and religions mattered a lot to him. And so I thought maybe if I need to call off one day, it will be a family matter. Oh my god, there's been a family matter. And I know he's probably not going to dig too deep about it, because he was very vague, talking about his family situations too, right? And so that's what I settled on. But then I started the gig, and I realized I loved all the students too much to do this to them. And if I have to go 8 weeks without seeing Wallace, that's not a big deal. I got these students to mingle with, and especially ever since I quit masturbating, now every new day brings about its own set of differences that allow me to distract myself from it. And all is good. I think the only downside is I can't talk about it. I wish when I was having an off day, I could talk about, I'm going through withdrawal, right? Just like my, I did use the withdrawal word a few times. Oh man, that's what withdrawal does to me, right? I made a mistake I think I made a typo on one of my homework assignments. Withdrawal, right? And, it's really nice because the students didn't ask me what I was withdrawing from, right? We're a very progressive crowd these days, and that's good.